Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
The top 5 biggest life lessons of 2024. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with Salt Strong UNCHURCHED. End of the year, guys. Got 2025 coming up here really, really soon. And maybe we're already there, depending on when you're listening to this. It's crazy to think how fast this year flew by. I started going back and I looked at every one of the past episodes. I mean, there's 51 of them from 2024. And wow, brought back some awesome memories, some just great lessons. And what I decided to do, because I learned something from all of them. I do these, as I always kind of somewhat facetiously say that I do them to help myself out. And it's more of a selfish podcast for me, which is partially true. I do a lot of these because it's things I am dealing with or struggling with, or sometimes just wanting to keep at the top of my head. Sometimes I look at this as something that I want to pass on to my kids, kind of selfishly, once again, that if I ever pass away, that this is kind of this library of thoughts from dad and even grandkids. I mean, that's the cool part about podcast and anything like this that you document. It's something that can be passed down from generation to generation, hopefully maybe impact some of their friends. Or my daughter Shauna can be like, hey, my dad recorded this a long time ago, and this might be exactly what you need. And I hope that's the way you look at it as well. And I hope you are able to share this with some of your family members. I hear from a lot of you that do get to share some of these episodes with your kids and even grandkids and spouses. It just makes my day. I never did this for the downloads, and I still don't. Obviously, there's no sponsors or anything. I don't make any money off this. This is just something I really, truly enjoy doing, and I look forward to every single Unchurched. All that being said, I had to pick only 5 because I told you last week that I was going to pick the top 5, and I decided to just go off of downloads. So I did them in it's a sequential order from the most downloads. That means, the most popular, essentially. It doesn't mean the most comments or the ones that maybe changed someone's life, but maybe they did. But it was the most downloads in general. So let's kick it off. The first one, the title was called In a Funk. And it was a time that I was going through a little bit of a funk. Just life in general, things just seemed like nothing was working. I was even struggling with just kind of religion a little bit and some of the faith part of it, I would say. I don't remember exactly what time that was, meaning like exactly what it was. I didn't go listen to the whole podcast, but I vividly remember feeling like that. I don't remember the part about the faith piece of it. But I will say, anytime I get into a funk, and this was the solution, regardless if the funk is with relationships, with business, with faith, with kids, whatever it happens to be, I go outside. That was really the message. A lot of times you guys have heard me talk about going up to the farmhouse in Georgia. It's 500 acres. And regardless if you have access to something like that or not, it doesn't matter. There's a whole lot bigger properties owned by the state that are state parks. You can just go walk in, get there early, and be there all by yourself and just try to hear from God. Pray on whatever it is that you're dealing with. I have had just some of my biggest aha moments. I've come out of those with just so much extra strength and understanding and peace. When I go outside, there's something magical that happens outside. So if you're in a funk, get yourself outside. Get out of the house. Literally, just doing that alone changes so much. Go out in the boat, go out in the kayak, go walk around the water. There is just something magical that happens. And for me, I've shared this before in the past. When I see like a deer, I almost feel like that's God talking to me. I had one recently, actually. The past 30 days, just having a rough day with a couple things going on, and I went outside and I was going down by the lake that we live on, and no lie, out of the blue, I kind of just sense something up above. I look up, it's this bald eagle. I got like goosebumps. Like it literally changed everything. Like this bald eagle, and it just started soaring around me. And the second I kind of had this like aha moment, like, man, I am so blessed. There's so many awesome little things in my life, and I'm sitting here complaining about this one thing that's not going right. And then I walked back up, and that bald eagle just took off. It was like the second I started walking back that I was almost kind of repaired and good with myself. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. That bald eagle just takes off. So it was circling around me, and then boom, just gone, like disappeared. It was almost like an act of God. So I never would have seen that had I been inside. So get outside. I had a recent listener had said something similar about just kind of being in the funk on the faith side of thing. And my reply, because this has also worked for me 100% of the time, is, and it's not outdoors, or I guess it's usually not, but is to go to a church, and in particular, a church that's like a big worship center. I never got as much out of the churches that are just all about rituals. And everyone's different. I'm not knocking that at all. I don't deserve the right to knock any of that kind of stuff. But this is me personally. The times that I've really gotten out of a funk and just felt closer to God and just kind of felt that energy is when I go to like a bigger worship center where there's music and a pretty energetic and sometimes even emotional pastor or a speaker. And those are the times I come out just like, wow, like a changed person. So if you don't know what kind of church that is, you can usually find them, usually the biggest ones in town. They're a lot of times called worship centers. They're not just like Episcopalian or Presbyterian. Sometimes they are, but normally they're not. They're just kind of non-denominational worship centers. And for whatever reason, even go sit in the back and just listen to that music. Pray to God that He'll open your eyes and give you wisdom, give you energy, give you strength for whatever you're going through. That is my way of getting out of a funk. Number 2, why you become what you tolerate. A lot of you remember that one because a lot of you replied on that one. And so I'll repeat the title, Why You Become What You Tolerate. And it has a lot to do with where we are as a society, right? We have just kind of turned our head and tolerated a lot of this kind of, I'm going to call it crazy leftist stuff that I think even a lot of my friends who maybe vote a little bit more on the left side think like, this is crazy. Like, how are we letting our kids believe that this is right? Why are we kicking God completely out of schools? Why are we? I'll hold my tongue on some of these things, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks and think about all the craziness that we are now exposing our kids to, and almost kind of just turning our eye to like it's normal. And all of a sudden you wake up one day like, how did we get here? Well, it's because we become what we tolerate, right? And California is a prime example. They were one of the first states to say, well, you know what? Yeah, stealing is bad. We agree with you, but you know what? We don't want to punish you and make you feel bad and actually have to spend any jail time if you're not stealing anything that's under $500. So essentially, if anything you steal under $500, you just get a little hand slap and you can go back on your own way to do it again the next day. This is no joke, and they've even moved it up, which is just how ridiculous it is. And so let me clarify this. So if you are in California and you go to Walmart, Target, any store, anything, and you steal from them $410, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You can only get in trouble if it was over 500. Now it's up to 1,000 is what I researched, but who knows if it's all right on Google. But 100% sure at one point it was $500. So what do you think burglars and thieves and bad people are doing, they're just keeping it underneath the threshold, and they just go right back and do it again the next day. And that's why a lot of these companies, these small businesses, are just leaving. Like, you know what? I'm closing shop. It's not even worth doing it. The state and the police don't even have my back because of these ridiculous rules. And they wake up and say, how did this happen? Well, it's you become what you tolerate. So you start tolerating stuff. You don't stand up for what's right. If you don't put your foot down and say, you know what, this is immoral, this is wrong. I'm not standing for this. Then all of a sudden you can wake up one day and become what you tolerate, even if it's a very minority, crazy thing. It can happen faster than you know. So that was a really popular one. The next one was all about doing life with other people. In other words, don't do life alone. We even talked about the palm tree. Do you remember the palm tree story? During the hurricane season, I shared that where, palm trees, like a lone palm, you've probably heard that before. Well, a lone palm is, I don't remember the percentage because I don't have it here in front of me, but let's just say it was 5,000% more likely. It was a really big number to fall over or snap in half during a hurricane if it's by itself. But the second there was 3 or more palms altogether, which usually they're in little bunches like that, it went down by literally like thousands of percent. It was almost impossible to break and really truly bend the palm tree because palm trees do bend and kind of slowly come back. It was almost impossible to break it. And this same is true with life. When you have 3 or more people doing life together, you have a pack now. You have strength in numbers. When you're all by yourself, it is 1, super, super lonely. But 2, you're just more susceptible to all the things that are coming at you, all the little storms that are coming at us in life. I mean, we're tribal people. We were put here on this earth to be together, to do life together. And I shared with you that here in Winter Haven, I'm on the board of directors at a nonprofit that deals with homelessness and depressions and just all the people who are just unhappy in this city. And out of all the surveys they did with everyone from the homeless to the elderly, the number one thing that was the number one issue that was clear as day that everyone was suffering from that had these issues, homelessness and depression, was loneliness, that they were all felt like they were doing life on their own, that they didn't really have any great friends. They didn't have anyone they could trust and talk to and share things with. And to me, that's so sad. And it's so avoidable too. I mean, there's knowing that there's so many other lonely people. Hey, let's unite them. Let's put them together and create some friendships. It's one of the top reasons for depression and even suicide now, especially amongst the elderly who feel like, man, their kids and grandkids are too busy doing life and never come see me. It really is just a shame. So don't do life alone. And that means if you are younger and you have a great relationships and you have a great group of people around you, but my mother or my mother-in-law or father, whoever it is that is a little bit elderly, I know they don't really have any friends, then change that. Invite them to some of the holiday events or whatever you're doing, your parties. Go spend some time with them. I know when my final grandfather was still alive, he was lonely. He lost his wife 20 years before, and he was at 93 years old. He's like, almost all my friends are dead. He's like, he just didn't have anyone. And a lot of us don't relate with that because we're so busy doing life. And he's 93 years old. He's like, I literally have no one. He's like, one girl that I was kind of, liked is kind of dating it in his 90s. She broke her hip and she couldn't go anywhere. And he's like, I feel like I'm on my own. But I saw my dad and my uncle in particular. It was every week they'd go play board games with him or have him over to come play backgammon and other games. And I know that meant the world to him. So the next one, and no surprise that this was up at the top, was money and success. I did a couple of different podcasts on money and success, and the underlying kind of theme was that neither are required for happiness, which is good news. The other part of it, though, is most people who have some money and success and have a little bit of some real goals and aren't doing it just for the sake of having money and success seem to have a little more happiness, if you will, and a little less stress, right? It's tough to argue that if you have some money in the bank, that you're probably not going to be as stressed out as someone who has no money in the bank. Doesn't mean you're happier per se, but it certainly can help with the stress level and the overwhelm and the feeling of, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this month's rent or pay my gas bill or whatever it is. And I talked about a big chunk of America. This is not the majority, but this is a massive chunk of America. It seems to be getting worse. It's almost like America is getting split between there's no middle class anymore. I think we can all agree there. It's now like the haves and the have-nots, right? And there's this massive group of people who literally live 2 paychecks ahead. And so if you think about that, and this was really the main theme of this podcast about success and money. So the big chunk of these people who are down the lower class part of it is living 2 paychecks ahead. That's all they got. And so their entire vision, this is where I'm going with it, their entire vision is just a couple weeks, maybe a month at the most, right? So if that's your vision and that's where you're living, how are you ever going to get past that, right? And so the theme was that if you want to get past 2 paychecks ahead, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not. Stop playing scratch off, stop wasting money on lottery, right? That's what hope people are praying that, hey, the only way I'm going to get past this 2 weeks is just win the lottery. No, it takes some vision. It takes some planning. It takes even having advisors around you. Find one smart person who has money or one person that has more money than you and ask them how they did it. Talked about having a mission statement, some sort of purpose statement or a vision. Every big company in America has this. Out of all the business books I've ever read, they say one of the main reasons that small businesses fail is they don't have a very clear vision. They're literally thinking month to month, just like humans do, the individuals who don't have a vision. Once you have that clear mission, even if it changes, just the fact you have a written down mission statement or vision of, hey, here's where we're going. It changes everything, and it can start happening really, really quick. It would be like getting in a car and just saying, you know what, I don't know where I'm going, but I'll figure it out in the next 15, 20 minutes. So your entire drive, can you imagine just going around aimlessly? But that's what people do without a vision statement or a mission of where they're going, right? It's a whole lot easier to say, you know what, yeah, it might take me 3 hours to get there, but at least I know where I'm going. And you can have GPS who might, move you around based on traffic and stuff. It might not be a direct shot on an interstate. There might be even some back roads you got to take, but at least you know where you're going. And it's crazy to think how many people live that 2 paychecks ahead, where they're literally just swerving in and out, and all of a sudden turn around going back the other way. They literally have no idea where they're going. One of the main principles I love in most things that I do, both personal and business, and I tell my kids this all the time. They're probably sick of hearing it from me, but begin with the end in mind, right? And let's do this with our life. Write out your eulogy, right? What do you want people to say about you, and to think about you, and to be even saying about you behind closed doors, not just at your funeral, being nice, because it's your funeral. But what are people saying in that car ride with their spouse about you on the way to your funeral? That's when you know you hit it, right? Because that conversation is a little bit differently than the speaker at your funeral. No one's ever going to talk smack on you at your funeral. They're all going to be nice. But what are people really saying? What are your kids and grandkids really saying about you on the day that you pass away, or the day after you pass away, or the week after you pass away? Right? I mean, and talk about legacy. That's 100% in your control, right? That's not one of these that you can say, oh, well, that's just their fault. No, that's on you. That is one thing that is 100% in our control, and how we live our life, how we made other people feel. So begin with the end in mind. The end is death. We all know we're going to be there. Begin with that end in mind. I do that constantly. And a lot of times that Remember we talked about being in a funk earlier? That was the very first one. A lot of times you go back to that, man. Begin with the end in mind. What do I want my life to look like? And am I on the wrong path right now? A lot of times I am like, oh man, it's not even what's truly important when I pass. And if that's the end, and I'm way over here, I swerved off. I'm like the person living two paychecks ahead. So on this one, I would challenge you to write out a mission statement. We just did it again here in the company, just to revise and go back and make sure it's just 100% good. Our mission statement, our vision statement. We went out all the way to 2035 in terms of what we want Salt Strong to look like in 2035, and it wasn't easy. It makes you start thinking outside the box. But once we started doing it and we backtrack, we're like, well, yeah, that's not. It seems crazy, but in terms of percentage growth every year, when you really look at it, like it's actually doable and feasible, and it's not some just kind of moonshot. It's actually practical, and it really got us excited. Like, well, man, if that happens, and this is how many people are going to be impacted, and this is what it could look like in a theme park. Like, it's really cool when you start thinking like that. And what I found is God starts opening up all the right doors when you're living out His plan for you. And His plan, I promise you, is not two paychecks ahead. It's not looking at just the next 30 days. He's got a plan for all of us. And that doesn't mean we're all going to be millionaires or billionaires or anything like that. This is not about the money part of it. But I promise you, He does not want us miserable. He does not want us living two paychecks ahead and never looking out at the future. And it's just wild. Every time I've done that practice of writing out kind of a vision statement of what I want my life to look like. And this is not just me. This is a lot of prayer and kind of trying to hear from God. It's amazing how many doors start opening up, and the amount of people that do start coming into my life just at the absolute right time. Even I talk about the books that all of a sudden just land on my lap somehow that are just exactly what I need to read during that time. So that's number 4, the final one. And these are some of the recent ones that combined have done really well. It was just the whole slow down and running your own race. And the running your own race was really about what it sounds like. Don't run someone else's race. That means don't be jealous about what they have or the opportunities they had or the money they inherited or whatever it might be. We got to run our own race. This is listening to God, having a clear mission statement, right? When you have that mission statement, that vision statement of where you need to be going, and your eulogy, don't run someone else's eulogy, right? So many of us do it, and it's so easy to get caught up in it, especially with the rise of social media and seeing everyone's life. And of course, we're only seeing the cool parts of their life. We're not seeing the miserable parts of it. And you hear about all these people who are just crazy wealthy and have these big houses. And you're like, oh man, why can't that be me? Run your own race. And I've got to meet some of these people. I've been very blessed to do some cool traveling and being around some really, really wealthy people. And I'm telling you, some of them are absolutely miserable. Some of these people that I was like, oh man, they must be the happiest person in the world. They got this mansion and all that. And you find out when you really get to meet them, and this is not all of them, but these are a lot of the people that don't have God in their life. They're on their fourth marriage and alcoholic and just lost. And you would think, man, they got it all together, and many of them don't. That does not mean that you can't have all that nice stuff and still be incredibly happy and have a relationship with God. You can. One of my favorite books that I read this year was from the founder of Chick-fil-A, and just talking about wealth. And obviously he's got a ton of wealth and has basically set up his family for at least a couple generations to be very, very wealthy, never have to worry about money. And yet they're just so wise with it. And they're such big givers, and they never let it get to their head. And they always stay focused on that eulogy about beginning with it in mind. And they got a family mission statement, a purpose. And I think as long as you have that, it's a great way just to always be aligned with God. And money can be an awesome conduit to happiness, and to be able to impact other people and give a ton of it away. Really, really cool. So that was the run your own race. And the other one was slowing down. To me, that's going to be probably one of the bigger ones that I need to work on in 2025. I told you the story about, my in-laws being here, and I was just in a rush, and and for me personally, I have this kind of the fear of poor performance, meaning I don't like to lose momentum. I like to just be. I love the whole thing. If you're not growing, you're dying. And I still believe that to be 100% true, but that doesn't mean every single second you have to be growing and moving forward. There are times to slow down, to pray, to meditate. I mean, there's a reason that they don't say to your best prayer comes when you're running a marathon going as fast as you can. No, there are times you need to just slow down, take it all in. As kind of how I started this podcast, right? When you're in a funk, go outdoors, walk around. Don't think about all the things that are happening in your life and the things you have to do. It's a good time to just get out there and pray, to meditate, take some deep breaths in, and just slow everything down. So that's going to be something I'm going to be working on. And I know what's interesting is the times I've had some breaks, meaning where I've taken some vacations and slowed down and just kind of gotten away from all the work and the craziness of life. Man, those are some of the happiest years I've had. So that's my encouragement to you. Love you guys. Looking forward to another year of Unchurched in 2025. I hope it is an amazing Christmas, amazing New Year's, and I look forward to chatting next year.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.